listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is September 20th, 2022, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Tuesday?
Spencer, I'm doing well. I'm here. WoW it's been a bit of a slower news week this week, but we're kind of in this. It's the calm before the storm in a way, right?
Yes, it is.
We're kind of in this holding pattern, waiting for Wrath Classic to come out, and then you got to think that, that's less than a week from this recording. That'll be out, and then it's going to be a big week for Wrath Classic launch, and then you got to think the floodgates of Dragonflight information and announcements and ramp up is going to start happening. So, it's exciting, but this week was pretty chill. It was kind of just like playing WoW and doing the usual thing.
Yeah, this is one of those news weeks where basically we are going to let everyone know about what's going away once Dragonflight launches, which means if you've been having that nice, slow, kind of relaxing, hey, yep, I guess I'm just sort of doing my own little thing in World of Warcraft, you're now suddenly going to be like, hey, you know what? Actually, there's like 12 things that I really want to get done before this happens. So start ramping things back up if that's something you're wanting to do before Dragonflight launches. So yeah, it's we got plenty to talk about on the show when it comes to things that you might want to accomplish or complete in World of Warcraft before Shadowlands goes away. So
we're like at that part of the expansion where the biggest news this week was stuff that's getting turned off at the end of the current expansion, which is that in itself is kind of exciting.
It's
I guess,
motivating,
but
right? Yeah,
it's like that the timeline's locking in once you get to that point.
Yeah, well, there's that too. The other level of excitement, comes from, hey, you know what? If they're starting to talk about turning stuff off, then they're going to be turning stuff on pretty soon too. So, yeah, there's certainly some excitement level about when pre-batch is going to hit and what's going to happen with that. So, but before we dig into what's going on this week, Jason, did you get up to anything in World of Warcraft this past week?
Yeah, staying pretty busy with Season 4 stuff. Only ended up raiding 2 nights, but it was mostly because those 2 nights were very productive. We ended up one night clearing Fated Heroic Nathria with plenty of time to spare, so we did Mythic Shriekwing before we called it a night. The Fated affixes and stuff really paid off. Bosses were dying really fast. Some, sub 2-minute kills and stuff at this point. Just silly. It was just silly how fast we were tearing through there. And then Wednesday we ended up doing another heroic ID with alts and stuff, which was cool. I brought my my monk to some Fated Heroic and got some nice item level upgrades. So Sunday we didn't have the numbers to even do like a 10-man anything. People had nothing left to really do. So a lot of people didn't show up. So we just ended up doing a bunch of dungeons. I got like 10 keys for the week. I got both of the Gorgron dungeon portals done. So, plus 20s on Iron Docks and Grimrail this past week. So that's done. I'm up to almost like 2360 rating. So, working my way up the system. The only thing I really want out of the system at this point is the Karazhan portal. So I need to get a lower Kara 20 in time somehow, some way. Well, we gave it a couple shots and it just did not feel doable on 20 Tyrannical for the group that we had. We ended up just walking away on Adamant because we couldn't do anything about it. So I think as daunting as that place can be, I think Fortified is probably the weeks where we're really going to try to hit it for the rest of the season, because I just feel like everything about that place is too punishing and the trash is obnoxious, but at least you can control it to some degree. Yes. And ultimately it is going to die faster than a tyrannical boss. So, that's just the last kind of thing we got out there. I don't have like high ratings on Tazavesh, either wing really. Streets I think is my lowest dungeon overall because we just haven't been doing it right. Like the payoff isn't there as much. Everybody got portals last season, and so eventually I think it'll just get to the point of like what seems like the most fun key to run for the rest of the season. But right now, like that's really the only thing left on my plate for Season 4 that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, the lower Karazhan comment you're making there, it's definitely the dungeon that the bosses in get substantially harder the longer the fights go. And in all of the situations for Lower Kara, you keep running into, if this boss stays alive for 30 seconds more, it is going to be substantially more challenging to fight this boss for 30 seconds more. So I do hear that and agree with that when it comes to, at least with the trash, you can control it to a certain degree. They've directed the majority of their nerfs towards the trash as well, which has made it a lot easier to sort of handle in a lot of cases. So yeah, I think that's a wise decision to go for a fortified 20.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get it, because it would just be so cool to have that, have that feather in our cap for this expansion, for at least like my core dungeon buddies to have gotten every portal that was available. Like,
yeah.
Are the Shadowlands portals ever going to be useful again? Who knows? If they continue to rotate older dungeons through Mythic Plus seasons, then yeah, maybe. I think having a portal to Karazhan, or having a portal to Mechagon or Gorgrond might just be cool to have in case, there's something going on that I need to get really far away really quickly. But the other thing I did this week, I finished up one of my last big checklist things for Shadowlands entirely, which was, I've been working on the Covenant campaigns, because when you play through the Covenant campaign, you do all the questing, you get an entire set of Mog gear, right? You get the whatever armor classes Mog it is, for that Covenant. So each Covenant has one different Mog set with then some different color variations and stuff for the 4 different armor classes. So that means I did the Covenant campaigns 4 times each, 16 times total, but I finished it up yesterday, I think. I now have all of those transmog sets for all 4 armor classes for each of the 4 Covenants. So that's pretty cool. It just gives me a bunch of different options for different tunes, like classes I don't play a lot, where I don't get sets, so I don't have cool looking armor for them. Classes I don't raid on or what have you. Some of these are really nice. I think the Night Fae mail armor in particular sticks out to me as like a really nice look for a hunter. So it was a big project. It's taken me, I don't know, last maybe 2 months I've really been working on it, just on and off, and hitting the snags with stuff being bugged or whatever still, and then you have to wait for tickets to get resolved, to get appearances to show up. But that was like the one thing where I was like, you know what, that's the thing that I want to do in terms of like my collection before we move on from Shadowlands. So I don't know what I'm going to do with myself now. I guess maybe Wrath Classic leveling will fall into that slot.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I definitely want to hit up Wrath. I definitely want to hit up leveling that Death Knight all the way up, so that I can actually get the not leveling, just doing the starting campaign, so I can get the mount. And I want to do, there's a bunch of things I want to do. So there's a lot on my list that I want to get done. So yeah, it's this past week for me was rough, because we had one of my coworkers had a death in the family, which meant that it sort of, we were covering a lot of his shifts, and we'll continue to cover shifts this next week. And that's eaten into all of my WoW time, because it was one of those cases where last week was actually supposed to be my week where I had more time off, where I was scaling back my hours because I've been working so many hours. And it went from that to being like, no, here's 4 extra shifts that you weren't initially working. So,
right.
Because I was the one who had more of a clear slate, because I was supposed to be scaling it back. So I guess we're sort of bumping that scaling back somewhere down the line to try and catch up on that. So yeah, it just meant that I wasn't able to I basically was posting out to raid for the week. I basically just told everyone, like, hey, if you need me to come in there and heal, you can ping me, but I'm going to be so exhausted that is it really worth having me in on a regular basis? Well, I'm not really sure. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough week for me, but can't always play WoW every week. It's just the way it is. Sometimes you gotta
prioritize. Yeah, I mean, it's just part of being an adult. Yeah,
it is. Yep, that's pretty much how it works. All right. Anyways,
if you don't have a way to pay for your WoW subscription and the electricity and the computer to play it with, then then what are you doing anyway? So
yeah,
it is annoying. I guess one thing I will say is, season 4 they talked a lot about how it was going to be sort of this accelerated process and everything like that, and I think we're feeling that pretty hard. We're now, what is this, week 8 of this season? It's got to be, because we had 2 full rotations, right? Now we're 2 weeks through the next one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, after, midway through the second rotation, kind of, it was like, all right, we're good here. If you kept up with doing raid clears and doing, dungeon stuff, it's like,
yeah, gear hasn't been on my list of things that I've been interested in this season at all. And it was one of those cases where, the very first week, very first first 2 weeks, I was like, I need to get these two particular items. I managed to get them, which I was very fortunate to do. And that just sort of like crossed those things off my list. Now, I'm still sitting on 3 dinars because I just don't know what I would want to spend it on buying. Like,
right.
a Cabalist Hymnal I could buy, but again, I've talked about this before. Like, I'm literally, I think, 1 boss kill or 2 boss kills on Mythic away from being able to get another token to actually upgrade it. And a heroic Cabalist Hymnal isn't better than the trinkets I'm using, which means this week, when I kill a couple Mythic bosses or a Mythic boss, I will have the Hymnal that I buy with a dinar, and I will upgrade it to, you know, being my first dinar spend on getting a Cabalist Hymnal, because I don't really want to kill Denathrius, because the boss fight is just not great at the moment at all. So, yeah.
You know. I mean, I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying, like, I think a consequence of how exciting and interesting the season was at the beginning and how all these reward systems work is that the shine came off of it faster than a normal season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like at this point, it's like if you're missing a raid week, it's like, well, you know, it sucks not being there for the team, but you yourself are probably not missing out on anything. You were desperate to participate in.
It's true. And I also feel like the prestige of this season doesn't exist because of how they're choosing to do the affixes with raids. It's meant that there hasn't really been any kind of race or importance of any kind of rankings or anything like that wasn't felt at all with our team or a lot of other teams that were rating in that top 50 kind of range, which has meant that we don't have the drive, right? The team's like, we could do it or we could not. Do we need to kill this? I don't know, Like, it's just real, like that's the entire attitude about it.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, fine. So, you know, this is normally, as we talked before, the time of the year where we are one night clearing, potentially having to come back for like an hour or something the second night, and that's it. That is our raid week. Outside of that, you're doing whatever else it is you want to do in the game. So, you know, yes, Season 4 generated more content that filled more of our raid nights, but I don't know if that was something that people were necessarily looking for on our team. And it's specific to, obviously, to each person's different way of playing the game and what they like to do with the game. But, yeah, I don't know if necessarily the people who play, especially on my team, we're looking for, hey, we need more reasons to show up very frequently and spend time killing these bosses.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people definitely enjoy that kind of, you know, expansion, ramp down, break, just kind of check out or whatever. Everything's off your list. In Season 4, it's like, well, here's a bunch of new stuff to put on your list, maybe. And some people said, no, I don't want that on my list. And some people said, okay, and then got their list done quickly. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's been better than it being, you know, an extended version of just, you know, the last raid tier continuing forever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's jump into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, well, this week is the Battlegrounds bonus event, meaning the Sign of Battle is up. The buff that gives you 50% increased honor gains from Battleground objectives and wins. And as well as, obviously, if you win 4 random Battlegrounds, you get yourself some Conquest, Anima, and Marks of Honor. There's the weekly quest in Oribos for a new deal, as well as Patterns and Patterns. You can get those crossed off your list if that's something you're still working towards. And, of course, the PvP quests are Rated Battlegrounds and Epic Battlegrounds, meaning if you are going to be running the queue into random Battlegrounds for your BG wins, you can do that with random Epic Battlegrounds and actually complete this quest at the same time, if that's something you're looking to do. Obviously, I don't think rated ones count, because I'm pretty sure it's just you actually need to do random BGs. It doesn't count towards actual rated BGs, so just keep that in mind.
Gotta hit the Q button, yeah.
All right, when it comes to the world boss for this week, we have Arana-Monos, the Ever-Branching, the big Tiernan that's up in Ardenweald. We got Morgeth, the Tormentor of the Damned. He's faded. And we got Antros, the Guardian Construct in Zereth Mortis. And Jason, which memories is Arana-Monos dropping?
So on Arana-Monos, you got Fevered Incantation for mages, Surging Shots for hunters, and Verdant Infusion for druids. So if you have a hunter, a mage, or a druid that doesn't have all of their legendary memories, you might as well go defeat Arana-Monos this week and get that taken care of.
Yeah.
Get some anima for your trouble.
Yeah, if you're looking to hit that Q button, as Jason mentioned, for PvP, it is a Wrathy Blizzard this week. This is one of those brawls that is probably the least brawly of brawls. It's basically a Wrathy Basin with a frozen lake and some weather effect that disrupts your vision from Lumbermill down to Blacksmith. So if you are someone who wants to sort of do a Wrathy Basin with a twist, you can certainly do that. This is not like gravity turning off or dramatically changing the rules of engagement. It's just this is one of their brawls that I feel like was testing weather effects. That's what I almost felt like this brawl's intention was, is how effective are weather effects and how effective could they be. And I would love if when we hit, winter and when we hit summer and when we hit spring, there were more seasons and more zones around World of Warcraft. I think that'd be incredible. If you are hanging out, in an area where the lake freezes at a certain time of the year and is frozen during that time of the year, and, maybe even you have some Tuskar or something that are selling you an axe to break through the ice so you could still fish out of the waters. Like, things like that to me would be really cool if they had ever brought them into World of Warcraft. So I think that there's an opportunity here with weather that I hope that they've successfully learned from their experiment, and it'd be neat to see seasonal stuff, sort of like the seasonal mounts that change their colors depending on what time of year you have them. Something with zones where, hey, you know what? We actually have seasons. It isn't just summer here in this area year-round all of the time, never changing, right? Like, it's not winter here in this area year-round all the time, never changing. It'd be neat to have some actual areas that went through fall and went through spring and went through winter, and you could see that happen. You go there certain times of the year and it's snowing, and then you come back a few weeks later and there's actually snow on the ground, and like that would be neat. So I would love if they incorporate that into the world. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, brawls are a good way for them to test stuff like that too. I think the only thing I would say to that suggestion would be, it would be a shame if you wanted to go to a place that is a certain way, that kind of evokes a certain season or something, and it doesn't match the one outside your window, and so it's not like that. So maybe if like one zone or like particular zones work like that, that would be cool. It would be kind of Animal Crossing-esque, and of course, WoW certainly has a lot of Animal Crossing DNA. Like, a lot of stuff that came into WoW was inspired by Animal Crossing in the early days. So the changing of the seasons is definitely a big thing in that game. So yeah, I think it could definitely work in some capacity for WoW.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying of, like, if you're in the southern hemisphere, your winters and summers are reversed.
Yeah, or like if it's summertime, but you just want to go to Winter Spring and like hang out in the snow, but you can't because it's summertime in Winter Spring. Like if it was, yeah. I wouldn't want it to be like everywhere, but I think if you had like some zones that were dynamic, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. I guess we'd have to decide which hemisphere all of the continents are in first, because that's the other thing that we have not decided. We've only seen one half of the world of Azeroth. All the continents are on the half that we see. Yeah. We don't know what's on the other side of it. We don't know how far north and south everything stretches. So, because Winter Spring is very far north, and Northrend is permanently snow, and I feel like Northrend makes sense to be what it is, based on the location is, and Winter Spring might make sense to be where it is, and then maybe like Fellwood would have some transitions happening.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
like that kind of thing.
Yeah, we definitely get a little bit snowy there, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I thought maybe Dragon Isles was going to be like our first glimpse at the southern hemisphere, because there's a zone with kind of a big glacier in it that's at like the south edge of the map.
Yeah.
But I mean, nothing is finalized yet. But apparently, where it appears on the world map is still in near the other zones. It's not like at the southern edge of the map or something. So yeah. I don't know. I guess that might be a thing for the future.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, that's just one of those things where I think it would really ground the World of Warcraft to have things like that change and shift. And I love the world, right? You always talk about the world being the main character in the story, and I think it would be neat to see that developed on even more so than they've done in the past. And I would expect very much so that environment designers would love this idea. It's just about getting the technology and support and dev time and everything else in behind doing something like this. So, yeah. All right, Mythic Plus affixes. We got Fortified, Bolstering, and Quaking. So non-boss enemies have 20% more health and inflict up to 30% increased damage. And when any non-boss enemy dies, its Death Cry empowers allies, increasing their maximum health and damage. And periodically, players emit a shockwave, inflicting damage and disrupting nearby allies. All right, so let's look at this in the concept of Jason wants to do Lower Karazhan 20 this week.
Wants to is, I mean, I don't want to. I want the portal.
Yeah.
Do I have to do this?
Yeah, this is less attractive for Lower Kara. So Quaking, obviously, tighter corridors are going to get you, which Lower Karazhan has a lot of. Also, there's a lot of sneaking that you want to do inside Lower Kara, depending on the route that you're doing. and it's hard to sneak as a group if people damage each other and pull each other out of stealth with quaking, so you got to be careful not to overlap those. Bolstering in general is just going to make a lot of the mobs difficult to deal with if you aren't killing them all at the same time. Now, fortunately, a lot of the trash inside Terra lore, you don't necessarily have to go, this is the target we have to kill immediately right now. You can, with a lot of the trash, there are some packs that are different, but with a lot of the trash, you can just AoE everything down and kill everything at the same time, which is your best way of dealing with bolstering. So I think overall, it's not the best fortified week, it's not the worst fortified week, but in the context of Lower Karazhan, quaking is not as nice as, you know, something else. Now, mind you, it's not volcanic where it hides under a carpet and surprises the crap out of you, and, you know, you gotta deal with that, but...
Yeah, volcanic's really bad in Lower Kara, man. All those rugs everywhere.
Yep. It's very, very hard to spot them, so it's not the worst. I'd say this isn't the best, though, but... And good luck with this week. If
yeah,
that's really
I agree. I think this is middle of the road Fort week. It's pretty hard. I mean, Fort bolster is just nasty, right? It's just the trash can get really, really nasty. But bolstering has been nerfed, so you're not going to run into a situation where, you know, you literally have to just reset combat because you're never going to be able to kill this boss that you created in the middle of this room. Quaking is obnoxious, but I feel like in most of this pool, it's okay. You know, there's certain places where it can be a big problem. Second boss in Workshop, for example, where everybody's got the LOS behind the box. You got to make sure your spacing's good.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain other situations. We're not really doing like an extreme amount of like stealth skips and stuff. When quaking can get really nasty in situations like that, where if it goes off at a bad time and somebody's not paying attention, now you're quaking on your friend in the middle of your shroud of concealment or whatever. Yeah. I mean, there is stuff to skip certainly, but it's, you know, I think it's a bit less pronounced than maybe in some other seasons we've had. You have these dungeons that are so wide open, like Iron Docks and like Junkyard, or that are so linear, like Grimrail Depot. It's like, there's nothing even to skip, but you do have to watch your spacing, especially if you're very melee heavy. You know, something like Grimrail can get really tight. So, yeah, a bit of a mixed bag. I don't think this is the easiest fort combo that we see, but I also don't think it presents like a huge roadblock for, you know, whatever you're trying to do in there. So, you know, mixed bag. You got to deal with affixes, right? It's Mythic Plus. That's the name of the game. You gotta have something. This is not great. I'm not, you know, cheering for joy when I see this combo on my key, but I don't know. Overall, I think other than Lower Kara, I feel like the dungeon tuning and the overall dungeon pool is so strong that it just makes everything feel like fun or interesting to do, right? It's like I want to okay, this combo is this. All right, we'll figure it out. We'll see how it goes in this place, and we'll get just an obscene amount of haste from the Dreadlords, and off we go. I don't know. This season's been such a slam dunk for me that even on a week where it's like, I don't love these affix combos, like it doesn't really deter me from wanting to play, which in the past it has been a lot more. You know, it's like, oh, well, if these affixes suck, I'll do a dungeon or I'll do 4 dungeons, but I'm definitely finished at that point, you know, and this season it's like, whatever, I'll just see who's listing some junkyards and I'll hop into some pugs. And I have never done that in Mythic Plus's entire existence.
Well, that's great news, especially since tanks are in such high demand that you're interested in doing that.
You know, especially when you have like a dungeon like Junkyard, for example, which is so much easier than everything else in the pool. You know, it's like, yeah, I'll take anybody's 15 Junkyard. Let's go. We'll +3 it. You know, like it's great. You know, if you have a good route and you can manage the bots well, it's a key that, you know, I've had a lot of success just full pugging into. So it's great to have something like that in the pool.
Yeah. All right. Brewfest is currently going. It goes until October 6th. So you got some time. You got a couple weeks left if you're interested in partaking. Obviously, with Shadowlands, the only covenant that actually got any kind of benefit from these sorts of things is Venthyr, because it means that the Venthyr Ember Court has a 300% increased friendship bonus when you're in there. So if you're someone who's trying to finish off some Venthyr achievements, which you might be interested in doing, depending on what's going away or not, the next couple of weeks are going to be great for that court, and I hope that you took advantage of it yesterday before it all sort of went away for the week, because it's a weekly thing to do the Ember Court. So get in there, get your extra friendship bonus done for your Ember Court and get all the achievement stuff you want to get. To actually celebrate Brewfest, you got to head to Orgrimmar or Ironforge and actually partake in like the Brewfest Chowdown or the timed events that they have around chugging ales and shoe pesky hosen and brawl with the Dark Iron Dwarves that come out of the ground from the big, spinny drill bit things that they come out
mole
of.
Machines.
Mole machines. I mean, they call them mole machines, but...
I like big spinny drill bit things.
I mean,
better. It's a name. Yeah,
and,
you just mouse over it, and that's what the tooltip says.
If a goblin was going to name it, that's what it would be named. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's the Dark Iron's lack of creativity results in them being called mole machines. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because they're a machine that acts like a mole. Like, we get it.
Yeah, it's a little on the nose. I hear you. But they also have the Garland of Grain, one of the rewards you can get, and the Tabard of Brew, and the Chowdown Trophy. If you're someone who wins the Chowdown, I remember the first time Chowdown came out and everyone was super competitive to try and get their trophy, cool. Man.
Yeah, it's really a cool addition to the holiday.
Not choking on sausages while you're eating as many sausages as possible and managing the beer. Like, oh my goodness, yeah. I very much remember having to learn how to min-max that to get all the trophies done. So there's a lot of fun stuff to do at Brewfest if that's something you're interested in. Obviously, you got Corndar Brew up again, which drops trinkets and a one-handed agility mace, a dagger, as well as an offhand. So if you're someone who's interested in doing that, and then of course there's the chance at the 2 different mounts that you can get from Corn as well. So if you feel like knocking that out, join in and enjoy the fun. If you do happen to log in when the Brewfest opens or closes, which is 6 a.m. or 6:15 a.m. or 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, you can get the Brewfest Enthusiast buff, which is a 2-hour buff for 10% experience. I don't know if I'm going to be leveling something at 9:15 a.m. necessarily on a workday, but yeah, it's something you can look into doing. It's kind of a cute sort of ad that's there. So if you're,
it's a nice buff. It's a little bit old-fashioned as to how it's applied. I mean, there's so few XP buffs in the game anymore, right? Since the leveling rework, they kind of wanted to make leveling feel streamlined and smooth and fun without buffs. Yeah. So a lot of the buffs are gone, but so a 10% buff is quite
still
significant.
Nice buff.
Yeah, it's just, unfortunately, you have 2 windows to get this every day, and it only lasts for 2 hours. So you can't, you're not going to have this buff rolling the whole time. But it is still part of the thing. So if you do want to level a character with Dragonflight coming up, don't forget, if you could park out there and grab the buff, then you can go get some bonus.
Yeah. All right. Hot fixes for the live game. Fated Raids. They went into Stone Legion Generals and they went, you know what? We're going to make some certain NPCs no longer get affected by Protoform Barrier because affixes are a thing that we put into the game, and we apparently put more development time into fixing them on a regular basis than we do into tuning people's characters in Dragonflight. What we have right now is General Draven and Prince Renathal are no longer affected by Protoform Barrier. In Sepulchre of the first ones, Anduin, Lady Jaina Proudmoore, Sylvanas Windrunner, and Uther the Lightbringer on the Anduin Rin encounter are no longer affected. Oh, and Anduin's Hope. They're all no longer affected by the Protoform Barrier, so just keep that in mind, making them substantially easier to sort of get that affix done. When it comes to... Oh, go ahead.
It's especially nice with the Anduin's Hope ads, right? The Hopes are the ones that you have to heal up?
Yeah.
Or they're the ones that like you have to
they
dispel
walk away,
them and heal them and they walk to the
away,
edge. Yeah. So that's good. You don't want them getting absorbed shields.
Yeah, it made it really weird really inconsistent to heal. The downstairs one that actually happened when that went off and you were like, oh, hey, actually I now have to do substantially more healing than I normally do inside this window. And why did that happen? And then you had to go in and look and go, oh, there was a barrier that went off at the same time. Yeah. The following encounters will no longer be notably altered by the Creation Spark. They continue to struggle with Creation Spark and put time into fixing these things. So Shriekwing, the ear-splitting Shriek, and Exsanguinated debuffs will no longer be affected by Creation Spark. On Huntsman, Sinseeker, Petrifying Howl, and Deathly Roar. On Sun King, Burning Remnants, Vanquished, and Crimson Fury. On Artificer, Glyph of Destruction, Stasis Trap, Withering Touch, Aura of the Dead, and Dimensional Tear. On Hungry Devourer, Gluttonous Miasma. They just go on and on through all these bosses. Basically, if there was a debuff that was on a boss that was affected by Creation Spark, they have gotten rid of it. And I mean that to the umpteenth degree, including Stone Legion Generals, Heartrend, Heart Hemorrhage, Ravenous Feast, Crystallized Burst, Seismic Upheaval, Anima Infusion, Volatile Anima Infusion, Volatile Anima Infection, and Wicked Laceration, all no longer affected on that one fight from Creation Spark. Like, they just went to town on saying, hey, yeah, you know what? This debuff is not working. We are going to remove all of it as far as how it affects debuffs. So, yeah, I think we're hitting that point where, since they're talking about pre-patch coming, and they're talking about what's going to happen once pre-patch comes, which, spoiler alert, all raids will be faded. We're going to mention that later on the show. When pre-patch lands, they are now getting things in line with all these raids to go. People need to be able to clear these regularly, and they're a pain in the butt, and we need to actually have people want to clear them regularly, because, you know, I'm one of those people, and there's a lot of people on my team right now, and a lot of people inside the Mythic Raid community who are like, I don't care about whether or not we kill bosses every week. And that's never where you want people to be. Like, previously, in previous expansions, this time of the year, of the expansion, I guess, is when we're like, yeah, no, we want to kill bosses every week because it's super fast and easy, and we make gold doing it by selling mounts to people. And so, of course, we want to clear the raid every week. That just feels good. Whereas right now, we're all like, I just don't really care. It's hard enough that It's not worth the reward putting in the effort to do it. So, like, if you can't have those raids where you're joking around and chatting and not, 100% focused on execution in the tail end of an expansion during the downtime, then I just don't follow. I don't know why you're not, why we're doing this, right? Why we're still raiding? Why aren't we playing, Among Us or some other game together so we can have those experiences? Because those are the experiences that really bond friendships and bond a team. And if the raid content is difficult enough that you still have raid leaders or people telling people they need to pay attention and getting frustrated at other people who aren't paying attention, that's a problem, because you need the downtime to really help a team solidify. So I think it's unfortunate that things like Creation Spark and Protoform Barrier and these affixes are kind of sucking the life out of that aspect of raiding, which is unfortunate. So I'm glad to see more nerfs come through. Hopefully they start to get things more in line with what I'm talking about, so we can start having more fun when we're actually playing the game on a week-to-week basis, versus being like, hey, it's a chore that we need to get done because we need funds to be able to buy BOEs when we do Dragonflight, and we do, like, that's just not, it's not fun. So I want fun.
Yeah, I mean, Creation Spark is the thing I've complained about on the show the most. I think all the other affixes are basically fine. I don't really have much of a complaint about them. I think, for the most part, they're not particularly disruptive, and their benefits are quite large. Creation Spark's benefit is actually obviously quite large, but it can be such a setback on certain fights or at certain times. I would prefer to just have it out of the pool entirely, but I like them just kind of saying, you know what? Yeah, we give up on trying to make this interact with, like, debuffs and timing. Like, these are all fights that we know, that we learned, right? If you've been raiding this whole expansion, like, these fights, and you have strats worked out around various timings or whatever. And when your timings get messed up, your strats don't work anymore. And that's frustrating. One thing we said a lot in the lead up to season 4 is, like, please don't make us reprog. We don't want to reprog. Yeah. Like, we want the victory lap. We just want to kill the bosses that we already killed, that we know how to kill. And Creation Spark is the biggest one that made that feel like reprog, or feel like we were trying to solve a puzzle again. Everything else is just like, kill this ad. Now you do more damage for 30 seconds. Like, perfect.
I would also emphasize in there that the other thing that made us feel like we had to reprog is they retuned all the bosses around using those affixes to a reasonable degree, which I dislike. I feel like the affixes should have just been a bonus, where it's, hey, the bosses are tuned around not having any kind of affix or any kind of benefit from it, and the affix is literally something that just makes the fights easier, and you get to play around with them. If you want to really optimize them, then great, you can do something really cool and explosive, and that's fun. If you don't optimize them, you just want to get them out of the way the moment they appear, you can do that, and that's fine, and don't worry about it. That, to me, would have been a much better situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big, weird experiment. They've never done anything like this before. Yep. We kind of talked about, wouldn't it be cool if they did something like this for years, Yeah. And I think there was a lot of cool stuff about it, but obviously not everything landed, and Creation Spark is the easy target. It's not a cool design, and it just makes things a bit too complicated. And yeah, the tuning made it take, I think now pretty much now that we're geared up, the affixes just feel like straight bonuses, but it did take a few weeks with the tuning where it was like, okay, I actually feel like this is providing a big benefit towards a faster boss kill. So, if we see something similar at the end of Dragonflight, maybe some lessons there.
Yeah, I think the number one thing actually wiping us on bosses at the moment is people forgetting to or missing an interrupt on an affix and wiping the whole raid.
Oh, so yeah, that's the worst, man. When what's it called? The emitter. When you miss an interrupt on that and it goes boom. Yeah, that's not a good time.
The whole raid dies, and you're like, okay, well, let's start over again because the affix killed us, not any of the boss mechanics that we're all doing properly. Shoot, that's too bad. Maybe if we could turn these off, it would feel better. Anyways, Mythic Plus, Karazhan Lower, the Beautiful Beast boss. There resolved an issue that would cause players with Mrs. Cauldron's soup spray debuff to be damaged by Luminor's burning blaze. Man, remembering that people had to come up with the names for all these abilities and characters, it's pretty hilarious when you think of what they had to come up with and what they did come up with when it comes down to it. Mrs. Cauldron's soup spray. Like, I mean, it's not soup splash. It could have been soup splash, but it's soup spray. And what's the difference between a spray and a splash? And they have to decide. And
yeah, I mean, it's all part of design. It's a big burden.
Yeah,
but yeah, this is really a big problem because if you have soup spray debuff, then you shouldn't be getting damaged by Luminor's burning blaze.
True,
and
yes.
As we mentioned, lower Karazhan's pretty hard, and the bosses are pretty hard. So. That could be a problem. So I'm glad they fixed that. That's part of the fight is like using soup spray to clean up the burning blaze and everything like that. So yeah, that's if you were having issues with that before, it should be fixed now.
Yep. Okay, let's move into the big blog post of the week. This is the things to do in Shadowlands when you're mostly dead. And it's a weird title, but basically it's things to do before pre-patch and before the launch of Dragonflight, because things are going away as an FYI, and you should probably pay attention to this post. So we'll start off with what's going away at Dragonflight launch, which doesn't make a ton of sense because it's reverse order. I know I'm gonna put their post in the order that we expect it to be in, which is going away with pre-patch. So that's going away sooner rather than later. The Restoration Deathwalker mount. This is the mount that drops off of Jailer. Keep in mind...
no, the Restoration Deathwalker is the Keystone Master mount.
Oh, it is? Oh, yes, it's the
purple Deathwalker.
Okay, good call. Yes, that's the 2000 plus Mythic Plus rating mount. Yes, so if you want to get over 2000 plus Mythic Plus rating, because you want to get your big swirly golden purple mount, then by all means, get over 2000 Mythic Plus rating, and you can do that. You probably have, my guess is with this post coming out, we're probably looking at 6 to 8 weeks before pre-patch. That is my guess. I would expect that they would give people at least those 6 to 8 lockouts to be able to do this. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have just 4. There's a chance it's just 4. Like, there is. That this is their warning, and their warning's coming, everything accelerated. But I would hope you have about 6 to 8 weeks. So that means you have a good 2 to 3 rotations of Tyrannical and Fortified that you can really play around with, depending on what the affixes are, to get up to that 2000 and plus rating and get yourself the mount, if that's something you're looking for.
Yeah, and I would say if you have never really done like Keystone Master or whatever, but you wanted to, like this season, I think is a season that you can make it happen. Yeah. If you're kind of hovering there like 1500 plus or whatever, and you're like, I don't know if I could do all 15s. Like, I'll bet you can if you can get the time invested in the system. And there are probably, with cross faction instance groups and stuff, like there are plenty of groups being listed that you can hop into regardless of which faction you play. I think the dungeons are approachable. I think the system helps you scale up really fast. So if you had your eye on a Deathwalker all expansion and you never felt like you could, reach that level with Mythic Plus, I think this is maybe it's worth making a push here because I think it's doable. This was the easiest season for Keystone Master all expansion for sure.
Okay. Continuing on the Mythic Plus train, literally, basically, the portals for Grimrail Depot, Iron Docks, Operation Mechagon, and Return to Karazhan, and Tazavesh are all going to be going away when Season 4 ends. So if you haven't guessed yet, Season 4 ends when Dragonflight pre-patch launches. Then we go into the off-season for the period of the pre-patch. And during the off-season, there's still things that can be earned. But the things I'm listing right now are things you can't. So you can no longer get your Keystone Master to get that mount we just talked about. You can no longer complete 20s in time to get teleports. You could still do Mythic Plus 20s if you wanted. But if you want those portals, that way to sort of get to those dungeons quickly, you have to do it before pre-patch launches. So there's now a ticking clock on getting your 20s done, if that's something you're wanting to do. The other thing going along with that is Eternal Gladiator's Soul Eater Mountain title. So obviously with the PvP season ending, if you're someone who has not won 50 games of 3v3 PvP above 2400 rating, you will not get your Gladiator's Soul Eater Mountain title. So you need to actually do that before pre-patch hits. And of course, the weapon illusion is the other big attractive thing for a lot of people doing PvP. Basically, if you earn 2100 rating in PvP, you can get the Eternal Flux weapon appearance. And if you're someone who wants to, weapon, what are they? They're illusions. That's what they're called now. I was going to say enchants, but they're not enchants. They're now illusions.
They make your weapon look like it's enchanted, but they don't give you any stats.
Exactly.
Or any kind of procs or benefits. But they do make your weapon look cool.
Yeah. So if that's something you're looking for. And then, of course, the Elite PvP Armor set, that's the Season 4 Elite PvP Armor, is 2100 rating for that full transmog if you want to get it. I actually really like how they did the armors for PvP, where basically once you earn that rating, you just get the transmog for it. I think that's really cool. That's the way that they chose to do it. So yeah, if you're looking to actually get the Elite set, you get 2100. I believe these are the sets that eventually drop back into rotation that you can spend Marks of Honor and whatnot to buy. Just way down the line. It's like 2 years from now, you'll be able to then buy the Shadowlands ones or whatever it is. There's certain ones.
I think so. Yeah, it's like because like the Gladiator sets you can't, but these I think I think these do become eligible for Marks of Honor at some point.
Yeah. The Gladiator ones I know remain Gladiator only, but I was pretty sure the Elite ones wind up in that pool eventually. Okay.
Bottom line here is that Season 4 ends with pre-patch, so anything related to Mythic Plus or PvP in Season 4, you better have done, if you want it, before pre-patch goes live. And, you know, I'm sure they'll let us know at least 4 days in advance about pre-patch, but probably a little bit farther than that. Anyway, the clock is ticking. You know, if you want the Keystone Master mount, if you want dungeon portals, if you want any kind of glad stuff, then you are on the clock. So just keep that in mind. You are not going to have that grace period of like a month or so between pre-patch and expansion launch to tidy this stuff up. The season will end. So speaking of that grace period,
we can talk about all the raid achievements. All right. So if you're someone who wants to do the raid achievements, if you want to earn like the Jigglesworth senior mount from normal, or the heroic title, the Hero of the Fated title from heroic, or the Shadowlands raid teleports in Mythic difficulty, you have until the launch of Dragonflight. Those things are all going away with the launch of Dragonflight. Similarly, the carcinized Xerath Steed, as well as the which is the mount for defeating Jailer on heroic difficulty or above, will no longer be available once Dragonflight launches, but obviously during pre-patch will also be available. So that's where like the Friendship Moose, if anyone remembers those days, it's the similar thing. You could have the Friendship Xerath Steed be a mount that people could help everyone try and get if they wanted for completing heroic difficulty. The Jailer is a boss that on Mythic currently drops 2 mounts. And same thing with Sylvanas, currently drops 2 mounts. And those are guaranteed mounts on Mythic for those mounts. Those mounts are remaining until Dragonflight launch. At Dragonflight launch, the drop rate on those will go from 100%, where you always get 2 mounts off those bosses, for having a full Mythic raid, 20 people. I say that because if you bring less than 20 people to the raid, it is not a 100% chance to get 2 mounts. Just as an FYI, it drops by 10% per person missing to get that second mount. But if you once Dragonflight launches, that the amount of mounts that drops down to 1 from 2, and the chance to get those mounts substantially decreases. This is that like 1%, 2% thing that they talk about with mount drops. So if you're someone who's looking to get those Mythic mounts, you need to put in the time to try and get them now as a team and start putting these things together. Now, like, we've talked about how this is an expansion that's going to launch by December 31st of this year, which means, you know, we're now 3 months tops out kind of idea from when this expansion launches. So best case scenario, you have 12 weeks to get these mounts, which is enough time to get everyone on your raid team one if you're just starting to kill Jailer now. But there's another little tidbit that is important here, which is once pre-patch launches, all raids will be faded until the end of, the off season. So until Dragonflight launches, which means that the chance of you being able to get one of those mounts is going to get substantially more difficult because you're now not killing the sort of like old school bosses that are, you know, pre-buffed. You're getting them post season 4. They're all going to be season 4. They're all going to have affixes. They're all going to have tuning for those affixes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to get harder as time goes on to get those mounts, which means that if you are someone who's like, hey, I really want one, it's probably going to get more expensive in gold to buy one later on. So there's probably a big push right now for teams who are selling these for gold to be able to stock their coffers for next expansion, to actually get people to buy them now versus getting people to buy them once stuff goes faded, because it'll be much more difficult to 19 or 18 man these bosses once this everything goes faded with pre-patch.
Yeah, because you have that huge item level jump, even without just the affixes, right? Because the affixes add a wrinkle, the faded affixes that make it more complicated. And also, you know, Sanctum of Domination's only, what, like 239 item level or something? I can't remember. Oh, no, a 226. Where did we come out of it?
It was 252 mythic.
252. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking, it's going up 40 plus item levels.
Yeah,
that's a lot. So that's going to be, if you're farming like Mythic Sylvanas non-faded, then yeah, that's a big jump in terms of, you know, the overall expectation, like who you can bring, whatever. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind with those changes, even though we have a bit more time for it, which is nice. But I mean, one thing that this makes me think of is, we haven't done Sepulchre achievements yet.
Yep.
And I don't know if I want to have to do them unfaded. We might have to like carve out a week before pre-patch where Sepulchre is not faded, that we can go in there and, you know, maybe do them on super easy mode and see how that goes.
Yeah. I
might have to work that into the schedule. I mean, in some way, you know, I think on normal mode, I don't think the affixes really make the fights any harder. So it might be fine to do it that way, but we'll have to check it out, you know. But that's the thing that's on my radar for now. We knew like a while ago, before season 4 started, they were like, here's how the faded rotation is going to work. Week 1 is going to be this. Week 2 is going to be this. Week 3 is going to be this. Then it's going to repeat, and so on until later in the season when everything will become faded. What they're saying now is the point in time when quote unquote everything becomes faded will be at pre-patch. So there's no reason to kind of expect some thing where they're shutting the rotation off, everything's faded right now in 925, right? Like we'll time that around the pre-patch announcement when we know that's going to launch, and then we'll know what to expect. So what to expect for now is the weekly rotation of one faded raid per week until pre-patch. So good to know.
Yep.
You know, I'm glad they put that out there, because you know, the initial announcement just had 2 rotations, and it was like, and so on and so forth. And of course, everybody looked at it and went, well, that means after those 2 rotations, then everything's going to be faded, which is not what the post said, but that's what we do. And then, you know, we had the thing with last week with double faded affixes getting turned on, and it's like, was anything else weird going to happen? And it sounds like the answer is no, that we are going to save the everything's faded, go do whatever you want for pre-patch.
Yeah, the only other thing they added to sort of throw a little more spice in there is the Catch a Falling Star, which is basically, we are all made of stars on heroic and mythic achievements. These are new achievements for Rygalon inside Sepulchre, and if you're someone who really wants to put the effort in getting these achievements, you can. They are going to go away once Dragonflight launches, but you have up until Dragonflight launch to earn it. Basically, you have to defeat Rygalon in Sepulchre with everyone alive and no one having died, while everyone is under the effects of the Herald of the Cosmos buff that puts out, which increases your movement speed. So you have to do that on heroic, and you have to do that on mythic, or I assume you could probably just do it on mythic once and get the achievement for both, to be able to actually do that, which is not fun. It's available on both non-faded and faded raids at the moment. But that's another push, as Jason sort of talked about. Hey, if you haven't done Sepulchre achievements yet, maybe you add this to the list while you're in there. The one thing that's nice about it is, unlike the Immortal achievements that used to exist, you can reset the boss and still make progression towards the achievement afterwards. With Immortal, once you pulled the boss, you pulled the boss. If someone died, that was it for the week. With this case, if someone dies, you can just reset Raglan or just wipe. There's no real way to reset Raglan. You just die, and then you pull the boss again, and you can still have attempts at doing the achievement if it's one of your goals for the week. So if that's on someone's list, be sure that you are, adding that there and trying to get that done within that time frame. Okay. The other thing to mention is basically the Azeroth Champion achievement. If anyone remembers BFA, Azeroth Champion was collecting all of the essences for your neck, and that required you to basically touch every part of the expansion in some way to be able to complete it. Now, Azeroth Champion is probably more difficult than this other achievement, which Azeroth Champion required you like 2400 PvP and you get Keystone Master and a whole bunch of other things. But in this case, the feat of strength is called Back from the Beyond. It's not something you can just look up inside of your achievements tab. It's something that you need to go to Wowhead and look up Back from Beyond as a feat of strength. And then it'll have the list of the achievements that once you've completed actually go towards getting this. It will no longer be available after Dragonflight launches. So you have until launch to have that. And you get the Veil Strider title. So you have Veil Strider as the title, which to me isn't as cool as Azeroth Champion. But you get Veil Strider title for completing it. And basically it's a huge culmination of achievements. I was sort of going through the list and looking at my what I sort of have towards this meta, towards this this big feat of strength. I think I'm 3 achievements away, and 2 of those achievements require, like, I never got the tower the Tower Ranger achievement for Torghast. I just never put the effort into actually completing that. But I could complete that if I just put the effort into completing it. And I think I'm only like 2 things away from finishing that. And then the other one was actually really funny. You have to do like 3 or 4 particular things around the Maw, and I've done 3 of them. There's 1 left I would need to do to actually complete the list of things, and it's like looting chests during a particular emissary event that's there or something like that. And I'm like halfway through one of those, so that's also very close. But the one that gets me, and this is the one that makes me go, maybe I just won't put the effort into finishing this, is doing all of the achievements for the Covenant specific events that exist for the Covenants. I haven't touched Necrolord when it comes to doing the Abomination stuff. I just haven't. Like, I started the quest chain on a couple of characters. I never really got that far into it. So I haven't really touched that one very much. And I still haven't gone back and finished up Kyrian. I got halfway through Kyrian and thought it was really cool at the time I was doing it. But to be able to complete both of those would take so much time and effort out of what I currently have before patch hits. I don't know if I'm going to do this achievement, this meta. It's funny. Like, I have of the, like, I think there's 10 things. I have 7. 2 of them I could probably knock out in a day, and one of them would probably take me several weeks. And the one that's going to take me several weeks is the one that I'm like, I don't know if I really want to dedicate the time to doing that, which means that, is it worth even spending the day doing the other 2? Like, it's a very weird situation to be in, right? Like, now mind you, when Azeroth Champion was out, I didn't think I was going to get it because I didn't think I was going to get 2400 in PvP. That was my thing. Like, I just literally was like, the odds of me getting this are very low. I at that point hadn't gotten above 2400 in a decade. So I hadn't been putting the time into PvP, but I did it. I eventually decided, hey, this is something I want to do, and did it. So my mind might change, but right now, the Veil Strider title for the effort that's required with specifically the Covenant special events that they have and accomplishing those achievements is more than I think I'm leaning towards doing when it comes to this title.
Yeah, same. I mean, like, first of all, a title doesn't really do much for me, right? Like, titles are cool. You see them on your character in a way, but it's not like it's a visual thing. I have a lot of titles. I have a lot of titles that mean something to me, or that, like, I come from a particular era of the game that maybe I want to say, hey, I was there. I don't think Shadowlands is that era. I don't think Veil Strider is that cool of a title on its own. I don't really want to commemorate like, oh, look at all this, you know, all these great things that my character did in Shadowlands. Like, it's just not, it's not my vibe. It never has been. And I am close to this. I would have to do the Covenant features, which I don't want to do because they're not appealing to me. If I wanted to do them, I would have done them at some point in the last 2 years, right? Yeah. Like, I do Queen's Conservatory every 3 days because it gives me a ton of mats, and you know, it's lucrative and very low effort. I don't want to spend the time to go through all the other Covenant's special features. They're not appealing to me. The other stuff I'd have to do would be Torghast. I haven't stepped in Torghast since season 2. I don't want to. I'm done with that whole system. I could go do Tower Ranger. I'm sure I could do it. I did flawless everything in season 2. Playing a tank in Torghast is basically hacking anyway, and I'm very confident in my ability to operate the Torghast system. Like, I spent a lot of time in there in seasons 1 and 2, but I don't want to do it. And it's weird because it's like I had the thought like, maybe I should do it. It is going away forever, but like, I don't care, and I don't want to jump the hurdles that are between me and the title. The reward's not worth it. The stick is too long. The carrot's not juicy enough. I mean, if you're like a completionist or like Shadowlands really is your vibe and you need this, then keep in mind it is going away. This is doable. I feel like this is easier to do than Azeroth Champion was. It's not easy by any means, and it requires you to touch like literally every part of the game. But if you do, you know, if you're a dedicated player, then you might be close to this already. And maybe if you go a little bit outside of your routine, maybe you finish this up, and maybe you do think the reward is cool and it's something you want to push for. So just keep in mind you're on the clock for that too. I mean, I did have a moment yesterday where I was like, am I going to do this? Because I'm reading over this blog post, you know, and I'm thinking about it. And then I go look it up on Wowhead and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do this? And I'm like, oh, I got that one done too. Oh, that just says do 4 of those. Okay. Oh, maybe I should finish this up. And then I saw like what the specific things were I still had to do. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need a title.
It's such a similar experience for me of going through and being like, I've done that, I've done that, I've done this, I've got that, I've done this. This is good. Okay, I'm looking at this. This is not so bad. Oh, I could probably knock that out pretty easily. That's not so bad. Oh, I only need 4 of those. Like you said, that's pretty good. Then you hit the Torghast one, you're like, I guess I could do it. Like, sure. And then I hit the one for the Covenant features and I was like, well, nope, not doing it, I guess. I mean, I'm not willing to put in the daily requirement effort on a regular basis for the next, 4 to 8 weeks to be able to accomplish that on all of those Covenants. I mean, if I had multiple alts, and this is, different perspectives, if I had multiple alts, and I'm sure there are people out there who are different Covenants, who are working on the systems on that same character with the different Covenants on a daily basis, you could probably knock this out pretty quickly. And it probably doesn't seem like a big deal at all. And if it's all part of a meta that's shared on your character, cool, gotcha. I don't. I have 2 characters at the moment that I really play on a regular basis. I do have some others, but they haven't really gotten anything going on them very much when it comes to these Covenants. This would be one character bouncing around from system to system, which is just not an enjoyable experience at all. So, yeah, it's one of those achievements that if people are going for it, I think it is going to be one of the more rare titles out there. I think there'll be a lot of Veil Striders, so that's pretty cool. If that's something that you want to earn and grab, it's going to be a pretty neat title. But I'm with you, Jason, that this expansion to me falls below Warlords of Draenor for my motivation to get things done before the end of the expansion, to remember this expansion by. Yeah,
I don't really think I need to commemorate Shadowlands on my character forever. Like, in the second year of Shadowlands has been fine. I've enjoyed the game pretty much, consistently since 9.15, honestly. But the first year was so bad, and also, like, no matter that aside, like the theming and the whole
world
atmosphere
itself.
of the expansion, it's just not. It never did it for me from 2019, the first time we saw it. It's like, okay, I don't want to do this, and I feel like this meta feat of strength and this title is like for somebody who really wants that. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. But I do, it is. I do think it's attainable. Even if you probably have some of the stuff done if you've been doing it. So. The big thing here is, season 4 stuff is the stuff that's going away first. So if you have any Mythic Plus or any PvP aspirations that you haven't done yet, that should be your priority if you care about it, before it goes away. And then you have that extra little, month or so of pre-patch to kind of wrap up these cosmetic type of rewards from raids or from other content. So I don't really love the way the post was laid out. We kind of talked about this a little bit when we were getting ready, to record today.
It was reversed. It was flip-flopped.
Yeah, it puts the stuff that is going away last right in front of your face, and then you have to click around tabs to find stuff. There's no timeline. Like, I think they could have probably expressed this a little bit better. I'm sure a lot of players are going to be confused about these timelines and what rewards go away when. There's nothing in the game that communicates this to you or will communicate it to you. So if you don't pay attention to these outside sources, then you might miss a window that you could have hit had you just had the information. It's not great. I mean, if you're listening to this show, you probably are somebody who reads the website, reads Wowhead, pays attention to stuff that's going on. But that's a relatively small sliver of the player base for people just logging and doing stuff. So I think it's great that they put out posts like this and say, hey, like, get out in front of this stuff. If you care about it, like, this is what's happening. But then you put it in a format that's just unnecessarily hard to parse and doesn't lay out a clear timeline or calendar.
It should be in a format that one image can be all you need to look at. I should be able to go on Twitter and see a tweet from the Warcraft account that goes, here's the timeline for when things are going away with Dragonflight pre-patch and Dragonflight launch. And it should be a calendar timeline of some kind, whether it's on a bar or whatever it is, with milestones of this is where season 4 ends, which means these things go away with season 4. This is where pre-patch ends. This is what goes away with pre-patch, and actually have that laid out for people so they can see it a little bit more clearly. Now, obviously, we don't have actual dates for anything like that. So this would be a calendar without any dates attached to it. But it is something that they can at least express in when the game shifts into this phase, this is what goes away. When it shifts into that phase, this is what this goes away. So yeah, I agree that it could have been expressed a little bit simpler. And I feel like something like a single image that depicts this is doable. So I would hope that we at least see that once the dates come out, at least when they announce things. Yeah. Hopefully we see a calendar, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe in the next, I think probably like week or two here. I think we're going to hear pretty much radio silence about Dragonflight, publishing before Wrath Classic comes out. But once that's out the door, then I think we're going to get some more of this information start to get publicized. And yeah, maybe they'll make this a little bit easier to digest than what we got so far. But yeah. If any of this stuff is on your mind, that's what you need to know.
Yeah. Okay. As far as Dragonflight goes and updates to it, there's a new toy, the Seed of Renewed Souls. Basically, you embrace the spirits of the Weald, transforming into your soul shape for 5 minutes. It's available from Lady Moon in the Heart of the Forest. So this is cool. Basically, hey, if you're someone who wants to be able to use your soul shape, not necessarily to teleport around and as utility, when you go through into Dragonflight and future expansions, you will still be able to do it as a toy with a 5-minute cooldown. I think that's great. They put this entire soul shape system into the game. They let people collect them all. It would suck if they were all trapped inside Dragonflight and trapped inside Shadowlands and you could just never use them outside of Shadowlands if you weren't that particular covenant. That's just unfortunate. So I love this idea of, hey, you know what? If you're a collector, this is something that allows you to continue to use your collection going forward. So I think it's a great toy to add to the game. Good for them.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, you're not going to be blinking around. You're not going to get the movement speed bonus, but sometimes you just got to turn into a big sparkly toad, man. I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad. They put a lot of work into building the system out to collect. There's so much stuff you could collect. They put in the critter shapes and all that stuff. I don't know if that works with this toy, but
I would assume so.
Yeah, probably whatever's like active for whatever subzone you're in is probably which one it pulls. So if you have a critter shape active, it probably pulls that one versus your soul shape.
If you're inside of a resting area is the concept with critter shapes, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a super cool addition. I think it's a good way to carry some flavor of your Shadowlands collection forward and into the rest of the game.
Yeah, and you can add it to your...
This toy, I'll go buy this. I'm not going to go get the Veil Strider title to commemorate Shadowlands, but I will go buy the Seed of Renewed Souls toy.
100%. And it also, like I said, adds something to people's list of things they might want to do before Shadowlands ends when it's still relevant content. There's not a whole lot else going on. Is maybe collecting soul shapes is on your list, right? Like maybe there's the Ray one you want or the Brutosaur or the whatever it is. Like there's some really cool soul shapes out there that might be fun to have that could be paired with this toy. And now that you know that there's a way to actually bring them outside of Shadowlands and use them elsewhere, or even use them when you're not as this covenant, right? When if you're not actually the correct covenant to have a soul shape, you could still technically use this toy to become the soul shape that I assume you last assigned. So sure, cool, right? Why not? I love the concept. Okay, player versus player. Rated solo shuffle is now going up on the beta. Basically, rated solo shuffle is something that they continue to work at, and that they want this to be a unique rated mode game experience for players. So they're really appreciative of all the feedback, and it's something that you can look into being able to play around with on beta. So if you're interested in solo shuffle, be sure you're checking it out.
Yeah, and they're going to do play with the blues for solo shuffle for testing. So I'm sure there'll be like Twitter announcements of scheduling for that. So if you want to help test out solo shuffle, and you have rated solo shuffle, I should say, and you have beta access, keep an eye out for that.
Yep. As far as professions go, they are now requiring crafting stations for all of your major professions. Basically, on the beta up to now, you could just buy up the materials off of vendors and then just craft anything you wanted right in front of the vendor. They are now shifting it into the direction of where it's going to be with Dragonflight launch. It's going to be with Dragonflight when it's actually out there, is you actually have to go to a crafting station to craft the things you want to craft. The concept behind this, to me, lives in a really great RP kind of world of, if you're going to be crafting something special and unique and cool, you need all the proper tools and spaces and, you know, all the items and whatnot you need in your environment. You can't, like, you don't expect someone to make this amazing, crazy sword just out in the middle of the wilderness by putting an anvil down on the ground. Like, that's just not a thing. They would have a special place that they would go and special tools they would use to do something like that. So this is the concept that they're going with for this. And yeah, I think the crafting stations are going to be really fun for players to actually be able to play around with. And along with this, obviously we get Valdrakken, which we'll talk about in a second, which is the actual like end game zone for end game area for Dragonflight. So they'll have all the big profession hub in that area. So something.
Yeah, that's the main city. The main city like has this big. There's a huge area dedicated to professions, kind of as you come up towards like the center of the city. So that's where all of your crafting stations are going to be. Your profession trainers, your reagent vendors, all that stuff is there. I think the idea here is they want people to okay, there's a place you can go where you can identify like who's doing which professions and everything like that.
Yeah.
For some professions, this is really not going to be much different than it always has been. Like if you're a blacksmith, for example, you're used to most of the time having to go to a thing or to use a consumable to make a thing that you have to be near in order to do your profession. For some other professions, this is a shift, and it's kind of a pain, to do making certain types of consumables or whatever that you never needed a station before. Now you need one. So I don't know how people are going to feel about that, but maybe they'll get used to it. I mean, what I do when I'm crafting stuff, if I'm making enchants or flasks or something in my alts, I'm always in the city anyway, right? Because I'm back and forth to a mailbox or a bank or whatever. So maybe it's not that big of an inconvenience, and it does kind of create that potential for, okay, players are going to bump into each other because somebody's, at the alchemy station, hey, can you make me flasks or whatever? Like that could be really cool. So
that's actually, I think that's great.
Yeah, there's potential upside there. So hopefully it's not overshadowed by like, oh, I just want to make cloth bolts. Why do I have to go over here? So, but I mean, it helps that from what I've seen so far on beta, like Valdrakken's a really cool looking city, and all of the props, like the art looks really great. It's kind of a space that you want to be in and explore and check out. And so, maybe that pays off. I think it certainly can. I'm also used to playing a character with blacksmithing for many, many years. So I always have to go to a place to do my profession.
Yeah, I very much feel like the concept of me going, I'm out of potions or I'm out of flasks or I really need an armor kit or an enchant or something done, and going into the trade sort of area and going up to that station and just seeing who's around crafting and going, can anyone here make, and just say it inside like a say, not a yell or an inside trade or whatever it is, but just ask and say, can anyone here make this, right? And sort of work out a deal or a bargain right there on the spot would be like a really neat concept to be able to do. So I do like that a lot of, you're creating this hub, you're creating this area where players are going to congregate who have the ability to craft these things, and you can have interesting interactions and meet new people that way. So yeah, very cool. There's a testing realm that's gone up for Valdrakken that right now just has solo shuffle, like rated solo shuffle on it for people to play around with, but they're going to sort of add more things to it, as like this is where the raid content's going to come out for raid testing and the Mythic Plus stuff that they're looking to do, and there'll be more profession things added to it. So that they're sort of making an end game realm for players to actually go to. And right now it's just Stormwind and Orgrimmar, and you can queue up for, you know, rated solo shuffle, but eventually there'll be more there if players want to check that out. So that's
which I think that's a really cool milestone for testing, right? Because the way they've been doing this is all very focused, right? Like Alpha was like laser focused on certain pieces of content. Yeah. So now you have this max level like template character beta realm that is, you know, apparently going to be laser focused on rated solo shuffle, max level professions, Mythic Plus, and raids. It's super cool. And so if you want to check out this, if you have beta access and you want to check out this content that we're going to be living in, you know, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis in Dragonflight, but you don't want to go through and like level up and see all the story questing and all that stuff and spend all that time too, and that you're just going to end up doing again. This could be a really attractive option if you just want to check out Solo Shuffle, you just want to check out Mythic Plus. You might want to, you know, if you have access, maybe make a character over there and get it set up and ready to hop into the stuff you want to check out. Yeah,
I think the hope here is that they'll get even more testing focused on the end game than they've had in previous betas, where players had to level characters and had to, in this case, you can just create all these different classes and characters that you want on this test realm, have them all be template characters, have them all be max level, and actually dive into this content and hopefully get even more feedback and more experience on those classes and characters. So yeah, I agree. I think it's a greght idea.
Yeah. Like I think narrowing it down, like really focusing in on a particular thing you want to test encourages people to participate in it too. So yeah, it sounds like that's what they want to do with this realm. So it's cool to see it. I mean, that's where I think it's where the action's going to be as we kind of move into later stages of beta here.
Yeah. The other updates that we got, some of my favorite updates are things to the UI and the display for players. They did art updates for the experience and reputation bars, which I'm really curious to see, as well as the Wyvern art for the Horde players action bar. They've also updated that framing art that they have.
If you want to get that Griffin out of there, you can get a Wyvern now. Yeah,
exactly.
Finally.
Yeah.
Alliance bias no longer confirmed.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I'm
having trouble parsing this one, but yeah.
As far as edit mode goes, they now have PvP arena frames that you can play around with. They have a loot frame that you can sort of adjust and play around with. I know that how the loot frame works got changed. Now loot kind of slides out of the frame, which is something that a lot of people were talking about as far as it just sort of disappearing as you click on it. And now kind of you've picked it up, you've taken it out of the bag is what it more looks like. And then there's also help tips that have been added to the frame as a toggle for more information. So as they add all these features, it's always nice to add a little bit of explanation for players who want it as to how things are going to work. So it's smart to add these sort of helpful tips.
Yeah, just, you know, weekly updates to edit mode and the UI overhaul. Good to see. And like I've said previously, I think this is probably going to be an ongoing thing. We'll probably see continued improvements and tweaks to it probably throughout beta and even once the game is live. And I mean, you know, it's been so long, right? I mean, they really never did a huge UI overhaul like this in almost 18 years. So, yeah, I think it's time to just have this framework where that's just way more flexible and user friendly. So, I haven't messed with it too much on beta, but I kind of don't see any reason for me myself to mess with it too much on beta, because I'll have it set up the way I want to once I'm actually playing that content on a regular basis. Once we get pre-patch, I'll take some time and do it, because otherwise, what am I going to? Once my beta account's gone, then that UI's gone, and Yeah, so I've just kind of put this over here, put that over there, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'd still love to see the ability to have a way to save and export your base World of Warcraft UI. They're doing the ability to save and export different builds for talents, so I feel like they're dabbling in that technology right now with the game. I would love a way to go, I've now arranged my UI with my chat and the particular channels I'm in, and I've, all the different, all those little aspects, which I know right now, if you go into your WTF folder and you copy and paste it, you can get a lot of that back. But I would love an actual, like, hey, here's a really simple file, an export string, whatever it is, that I can share with other people if they want to have the same thing as me, whatever it is, that guarantees that, hey, you know what, if I'm playing the live game, and I want to go play beta, and I want my UI to be copied over, there's an export string that will copy over the features that currently exist in the game to move them around in the place on beta so that they line up. And vice versa, I want to be able to take one in beta that I've saved and I really like and save it, and when Dragonflight launches, load that into the Dragonflight one, and it will adjust the features that exist within Dragonflight already. So obviously if they're like, hey, you know what, we're also going to add this new window that can do this fancy thing and this other chat thing that does, that's fine. Those can all be separate things that are not involved. They just remain on default, but everything else that I had saved from beta gets changed over. I think would be a really nice feature for the game. And I think you'd see a lot of players take advantage of being able to share that aspect of the game, especially now that we're doing more with raid frames and more with everything else. Like being able to safeguard that for when patches and things like that hit, where you're worried about that being wiped, or you have a new computer and you're looking to move stuff over, or, you know, you're in that situation where, hey, I have this friend who's just starting out playing and I have some suggestions as to what might make the game easier for them. Here's my suggestion, right? You could even have someone go, hey, here's my UI. There's this thing I really don't like about it. And you go, I think I have a pretty neat idea about how to fix this for you. And that you can load up their UI, fix the things you want, export it, and give it back to them. Like, that to me is cool. Like, why not, right?
Yeah, there could be a lot of potential there if they can make that tech work. I mean, think about, you know, now what we've been doing, well, a lot of people have been doing, I don't do this as much, but for the last several years is, you know, people will make sort of these weak auras, like suites of things to use to like redo your UI with. And that's awesome. But what if you could remove like that whole layer of it and just make it even that much more streamlined to edit yourself and then export and share with people so that they can use it, tweak it to their own liking. I mean, it'd be really cool to see something like that come in. I don't know how realistic it is, or if they can do it with certain elements of the UI, maybe they can do it with others. I don't know, but that'd be awesome to see. That would be sort of the next, you know, layer on top of the UI rework would be, you know, being able to easily export and share it.
Yeah, and save it. Like the other big fear a lot of people have is having to redo their UI. Like, and we talk about all the time with beta of every time they do a beta wipe, I have to log into beta and redo my whole UI. Like, imagine if you could literally just, okay, a beta wipe's coming up in 2 days. I'm going to export my UI and save it into this, you know, string or whatever it is that I want it to be in. And when they wipe, I'm just going to re-import that. And then suddenly my UI is fixed again. We could jump right back into testing. Like, it'd be great. So, yeah, I would be very down with this becoming a feature with WoW that I think would be really beneficial to players. Okay, let's play a quick sounder for our patrons. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Infark, Kapawi, Mibble the Mighty, Nick, and Shorel. Thank you! This sounder is for you. Yes, you can find our Patreon over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. I'll be updating that sounder soon as we move towards October. With the new patrons who have donated on the tier that will actually support that. So we want to say a big thank you to all of our patrons. And our newest patrons, Aster Raven and Greg. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show with Patreon. It means a lot to us. It helps pay all of the bills that are associated with hosting and posting and building all of the new assets and all of that fun stuff, all the technology behind it, things like that. We're all supported by our patrons. So thank you so much for that. And we welcome you and hope to see you around Discord, and, you know, maybe we'll hear you on a patron Q&A episode that we do, because the next one's next Friday, right, Jason, the 30th?
Yes. Welcome aboard, new patrons. Great to have you. Thank you so much for supporting the show and for helping make us the best show it can be. And yeah, it is about that time. As you said at the top of the show, it is September 20th, which means we are running out of time for the September patron episode. But you know, we got a lot more stuff to record for September for TSE, but we are gonna shoot for Friday the 30th, so a week from Friday for the September patron episode. So if you want to get questions or topics in advance, feel free to submit those, you know, via the Discord, via the Patreon page, via email. If you just let us know you're a patron, and we'll get those on the list for the September show. So yeah, get them in while you're thinking about it. You know, we'll archive them, and then you know, we'll send out more formal stuff next week about when the episode's going to be and what our outgoing question or topic is and everything like that. But you can start getting stuff in, you know, whenever you think of it.
Yeah, feel free to submit anytime inside of our through Patreon or through our Discord. There is a patron-specific channel for a different tier up there, but even if you're not, we can still see the color of the name that you are submitting with, so we know if it's a patron question or not, and we can make sure we put those into the show and make sure they get on there whether you're able to be there live or not. All right, if you folks have enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcast, leaving us that 5-star review. They really help out our show, and we love hearing them from our listeners. They boost us up those charts, and we don't have any at the moment to read, so if you submit one, we will read it, which is going to be great. We love getting our 5 stars, so please, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, leave us those 5-star reviews. They mean a lot. All right, that wraps up episode 542 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out the show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter, or you can join our Discord, like I just mentioned, over at thestartingzone.com/Discord. We love chatting with everybody over there. And if you want to get your hands on some TSZ gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone, where I think they just had another big sale go up. A lot of the time, it's like 33% off things. So be sure you're checking the store regularly for when those sales are happening. And you can get shirts and mugs and stickers and all that sort of fun stuff over there. Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. And you can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald when my ISP decides I can have enough upstream that my stream will function.
Yeah.
Which was not the case the last time I tried to stream. So I don't know what's going on with that, but streams are generally Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday for faded raids and keystones and whatnot. Sometimes we'll weave in a little beta stream or something else if I'm doing some solo play. So check out the Twitch channel as well.
Yeah. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, you've probably seen Jason's camera phase in and out of pixelation throughout this episode. That is just that upstream being weird, although fortunately his audio stayed good, which made me very, very happy. I didn't have to worry about anything audio-wise. So those on the audio product, you would never even notice, which is perfect. All right. If you're trying to find me, though, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey or over on Twitch, twitch.tv/SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.